Oh, just making our way into a space where we can get nice and comfortable on our backs. And as you settle in there, just feeling the breath start to slow down, feeling your body appreciate the support beneath you. And feeling how the breath is impacting not only the torso, but your mind. There's this beautiful river flows through this little mountain village. And the villagers call it the peaceful mirror because of how the surface of the river reflects the sky, the mountain peaks with such perfect clarity. Let's bring our knees into a bed position. And we'll just take the hands and press into the thighs and see if you can push those thighs just a little bit further away from you, trying to get some elongation of the spinal column here. The trick here is that if we allow the back to arch, we'll lose the lengthening. So we want to keep the lumbar neutral as we press away. And then let's relax and heel toe the feet out to the width of the mat. Let the knees fall in towards one another. You can utilize that blanket or a prop if the knees don't comfortably come together. Just place that in between the knees. Looking for the lumbar to relax into neutrality here. Trying to let that musculature that we elongated really receive what we've done. And then let's take the knees back out to the width of the mat. We'll walk the heels back in line with the hips. So we have that 2 fist distance. And one more time, let's place the hands on the thighs and see if we can just push the lower half of the body away from the upper half of the body. The goal here is to just create a little less pressure between the vertebrae. And in order to do that, just to repeat, we really need to keep the entirety of the spinal column neutral. And let's relax. Take your right leg and extend it towards the ceiling. In the direction of, not necessarily directly at, but towards the ceiling. And then let's take our hands and see if they're able to interlace behind the right hamstring. If that doesn't feel accessible, remember that you can bend that knee significantly. And once you feel like you have a nice, balanced, neutral spine, once you feel like you're able to relax and breathe, see what it feels like to extend that left leg down the mat. Remember, we are looking for restorative energy within the body. So we're not trying to overtax the hamstring here. The goal here, a little unilateral inversion. We get some of the blood flow out of the right leg. Sure, we engage this posterior chain on the right leg as well. And then let's bend that left knee. Plant the right. And try to allow your sacrum to settle back into neutral. Definitely have some asymmetry in the tension of the posterior chain possible. Think about the right and left side of the ilium, the bony structure. Just balancing the weight against the mat. Let's do the same thing to the second side. So we'll extend that left leg towards the ceiling. Whenever it's towards, not directly at, just whatever feels comfortable. Then we see if we can interlace those hands behind the hamstring. And we just try to find our body's ability to relax here, to be at ease here. Find the fluidity in our breath. And then once you feel like you've found that, once you're at ease, the right leg can extend down the mat. Extending the opposite leg does take some of the slack out of the posterior chain. So you do have some more tension put into the system. So just note that. Maybe that means you bend the left knee more, or maybe you bend the right knee a little bit. Lots of options here. When it feels appropriate for you, when you feel balanced left to right side, let's bend that right knee and then bend the left to mirror. You feel your body settle into that posterior chain space. The knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And we'll press ourselves up into seat. And from seat, let's extend our legs straight out in front of us. One more time, let's address this posterior chain by just finding our way into a little seated forward fold. We've engaged this musculature, and so it may speak to you a little louder than it might normally. Maybe has a little more space. You may be a little bit further into the fold than you might think of this at this portion of class. That being said, remember that the knees can bend. We can make our adjustments. We make this shape feel restorative. So this placid river that captured the surrounding beauty and reflected it back in the world. Was aware of the feedback it was receiving. It was aware of what the villagers thought of it, how they valued its reflective quality, its beauty, its mirror-like qualities. Let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Good long opportunity to fold. Last 15 seconds here. See if you can find any more available space in your fold. We will eventually walk ourselves back up into a seat. In the seated space, let's engage our ball. And let's engage our blanket. So we'll take the blanket and we'll take that from shelf fold. So blanket or towel from shelf fold to a hot dog. Just have that next to us. And with our ball, let's head onto our backs. As you come back from that flexion to this neutral extension, I want you to think about where along the spinal column you're feeling sensation, where you're feeling release, maybe where you're feeling tension, but where the sensations are as you settle here. And I want you to kind of lock that into memory because we're not going to use it right now, but we want to go back to it. With the ball right now, we're going to find the knee pit, space right behind the knee, and we're going to clamp our leg down on that ball. Now, the first option is just to plant the foot. We are addressing kind of mid-hamstring, high calf insertion, two sections of musculature that are relatively ignored and therefore maybe extra loud in their communication to us. So this might feel like enough. If you feel like there's some more capacity for engagement with this musculature, we can draw that left thigh in towards the torso and get our hands onto the ankle. But really thinking about creating leverage around that knee joint. So the lower you are, the more leverage you're going to have. This may not be right for you though. This is a pretty intense position to be in. That high calf musculature in particular. Probably one of our most neglected areas of musculature. You think about this sheath of calf tissue that ties in here behind the knee joint at that tibia, fibia, proximal head. This load of musculature takes the burden of our weight as we flex into that toe mound. This tissue flexes. We're constantly putting our body's full weight on this tissue, and we're constantly building and forcing that musculature to engage. But very rarely do we force ourselves to interact with that tissue in a restorative way. And I know you could probably make an argument that I couldn't give a lot of rebuttal to, that this isn't remarkably restorative. My only rebuttal will be, as long as we can get the nervous system to calm down, the impact we're making on that musculature will serve us long beyond the moments of intense engagement here. We're going to give ourselves just 20 more seconds on this first side. Think about slowing down your breath. And when you're ready, we can remove that ball. Let the legs mirror each other. And then if your legs aren't extended, let's extend both legs so that you can feel that calf musculature. Maybe pull the toes up towards the nose and feel that asymmetry. And then let's bend both knees. We'll take that ball to the second side. And we'll find the position. Maybe the foot is just down against the mat, or maybe we pull the thigh in towards our torso and clasp on that ankle or towards that ankle. There's a real powerful awareness and connection that can come to our breath when we put ourselves in these intense situations where we're engaging with our body. That is, if we can slow down our rate of respiration. And continue to slow down our rate of respiration. The way in which we experience the sensation changes. And so while you're here on the second side, if you can connect to that ability of your breath, to completely change the way in which you experience the world. Slowing the breath down to the point where you are minimizing the amount of breaths you take per minute. And we get that rate of respiration down 3, 2, 1 cycle of breath per minute. We'll give ourselves 20 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we can take that ball out, extend, bring both knees to a bent position first, and then extend the legs. And feel how the calf musculature has changed. Feel how that ease radiates from that high calf insertion through the rest of the body. How your entire body can be relaxed here. Let's engage our ball and we'll bend both of our knees. And with the knees bent, we're going to recall back. Maybe we can still feel sensation, but we're going to recall back to where we felt the most sensation along our back. And we're going to aim the ball into one of those spots first. And we want to find a spot where that ball is really catching the musculature. It's almost, it's very likely, right, that we're going to be on the QL musculature, the musculature that runs along either side of the spinal column. I want that ball to catch on a piece of musculature that is speaking to us, and then we want to turn back to our ability to breathe. Slow down our rate of respiration. To use this pressure of the ball as a way to communicate with this musculature through our body's ability to control our respiration and to relax. So we'll just pedal in and relax here. Feeling the pressure of the ball. And constantly slowing down our breath so that we can be more and more at ease with the engagement. We'll give ourselves about another 60 seconds here. Really thinking about how that back musculature can be communicated with through our breath, so that it releases more space. When it feels appropriate, let's pull that ball out from side one. And we'll relax back onto our spine. And once again, feel the potential asymmetry. Your body shifting towards that first side that you freed up. And can you bring the weight distribution back towards balance, equilibrium? Before we take our ball, we think about where it will be most impactful on the second side. And we seek out that engagement. Letting the ball and the musculature connect. Feeling into the sensation that's created through that connection. And then tuning to our breath. Flowing down. Melting our way into space. Really thinking about our ability to change the way our body's responding to the sensation just through our breath. So this river had been keeping a secret. For years, it had been feeling a change happening within it. The waters contained within have been growing more and more stagnant. Fish, snails, the aquatic forms of life were struggling to breathe. Ants that once dug into the soil. The river's bottom were starting to slowly die. And yet the river was holding back with all its might, preventing water from flowing. So that the people of the village would continue to appreciate the pristine reflections it offered. Ourselves about 30 more seconds here on this second side. When it feels appropriate, let's take that ball out. We can set that to the side for now. Have your blanket handy. And let's take our hands, press into the thighs again. Remember, the lumbar stays neutral. Push the thighs away. See if there's more room now. If you have less musculature restriction, if you can get more engaged with the spinal column itself in this elongation. We'll relax. We're going to take this prop and slide it underneath the sacrum here. So this is a supported bridge. You'll note that I have this a little bit lower than normal. You may want to double this up. I would say if you double this up, change the direction of the blanket so that you have a more uniform density across the direction or across the sacrum with the blanket direction. What we're looking for here is to allow all of that length that we've put into the QL musculature to drop into the torso itself. So a big continuation of our posterior chain expansion. Arms can be by your side, they can be overhead, they can be a cactus or T. I think the only thing I would say is make sure the positioning of your arms is not pulling tension into the torso. So that if having your arms in a place brings tension and therefore pulls slack out of our torso, we lose the ability to expand. So make sure wherever the arms end up, this torso musculature is fully at ease. Check back in with your breath. Maybe you're looking to slow things down even more here. We're still 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll lift yourselves high enough to pull that prop out from underneath us. Let your body kind of recenter here. Think about how the posterior chain is feeling from kind of the tie-in at the base of the thoracic spine, all the way down to the cradle of the sacrum and the ilium. And then let's let both knees fall over to the left. And as they do, see what it feels like to slide that right foot above the left knee, even tucking underneath, and let that left hand come on top of the right thigh. As we try to find all of the available depth for this twist. Additional depth becomes available for rotation when we space out the vertebrae, right? We give them more ability to rotate when they're not compressed in against one another. And so we're trying to find that and transition it into rotational capacity. And let's just be here for 30 more seconds. And when you feel ready, we'll bring the knees back to neutral. Note the shifts and changes from that rotation. And then let's explore side two. Knees fall to the right. Maybe it feels accessible to pull that left ankle over the right thigh, and then that right hand can come on top of the left thigh. Just looking for our full depth and rotation, whatever that is for our body this morning at this point in practice. Just breathe into this space. Thinking about the rate of respiration and the tool that it can become for you into expansion. And we'll give ourselves 30 more seconds on the second side. When you're right, when you're ready, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Settle in to that space. We have one more section of the spine to address. We're going to do that with our blanket and our ball. My favorite cervical spine adjustment. Ball goes inside the hot dog fold of the blanket. And we take that blanket, and the blanket really just becomes a little bit of extra depth, but more a way to hold the ball into place. The biggest key here, as I always say, we don't want the chin tucking down. We're not trying to kind of continue that space where we spend most of our time looking down at keyboards and phones. We're trying to expand the cervical spine. So think about getting into a position where the cervical spine feels like it is receiving here, where the chin is lifted. And then I'll give you one last very optional choice here. You can take those hands, your hands, to the side of your head and kind of encourage the head to lift and elevate away from the torso, just creating some space and separation between the vertebrae of the cervical spine before you relax that in. Similar to what we did by pressing into our thighs, we just have to grab our head. That may not feel right for you, but if it does, feel free to offer that little length before you fully settle into your adjustment here. We'll just really find our way to ease. And so as the creatures of the river start to suffer from the river's choices, the river itself can feel its life force dwindling. The stagnation that is making it hard for the plants and animals to breathe. Is deeply impacting the river's ability to survive itself. And yet, with all its force, it is working to stay still, tranquil, placid, so that the villagers around it will continue to heap their praise on its reflective surface. Yourself just another cycle of breath here. Thinking about letting go into this prop underneath you. And then when you're ready and it feels appropriate, let's remove the prop, release ourselves into neutral, and ask if there is anything that we might want, that we might need, that we might benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If we have everything that we need, if we're ready for some stillness, and let's find our way into that version of stillness now. One spring day, a storm with a deluge of rain came through the valley. And the rain continued to pour and pour in to the river. And the river fought against the weight, the extra force with all its might to make sure that the water stayed as calm and tranquil as the villagers expected. But as more and more water came, not flowing, the riverbanks started to expand. They started to expand towards the village itself. When you're ready, find your stillness. Just drift into that shape where you can experience Shavasana this morning. With more and more rain, banks of the stagnant river continued to expand. And the river realized it had a choice. It could move, or it could allow the water to overtake the village. So the river's waters ran once again. The villagers cried, said, "Oh, our beautiful river has been ruined," as the water rushed by. The fish, the plants, receiving their fresh air once again, could breathe. And with time, even the villagers started to realize that while the river once was calm, peaceful, and reflective, it had hidden the stagnation below the surface. We'll start to move our fingers and our toes. Move your wrist and your ankles. Let that movement work its way up into your elbows and your knees. Shoulders and hips. Head, neck, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition into a seat. In our seated space, spine gets tall. Stay with that length. Stay engaged enough in the core that you stay elevated in the torso. Let the eyes close. The river felt good in the clarity of its decisions. Once again, the ecosystem of the river sprung back to life. Our next inhale, let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, and you remind yourself that comfort is not a substitute for clarity. Clarity sustains life. See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Hope you have a beautiful week. No practice tomorrow in observance of MLK Day. Hope you take some time, appreciate the rest of this spinal space today, and I will see you next week to recharge. Love the heck out of you. Wow. Hang in there.